Hey guys, what's up? It's Finch here. Today we are going to be discussing the viability rankings for the SSLU metagame. We recently had an update where some Pokemon rose, some Pokemon dropped. We're going to go through it all here. Seeing as the thread I update, I have a ton of insight on the process, the voting, etc. And I just want to share that all with you guys because I believe you deserve transparency, you deserve information, and you deserve to know where our metagame that we all love and play is going. So let's go ahead and get on to it. First and foremost, we're going to be discussing the rises in the viability. So there are some Pokemon that rose in the higher ranks that I want to highlight as particularly important Pokemon in the metagame, definitely prevalent towards current trends. Those Pokemon would be Ferrothorn, Kyurem, Blissey, Slowbro, and Victini. All those Pokemon either found their way higher in the A ranks, which for those of you who don't know, S rank is the metagame definers, the top Pokemon or top 3 Pokemon in the metagame. A ranks are really the very important role players in the metagame. B ranks are kind of the, still very usable Pokemon, but maybe a bit less consistent. Then you get down to C, that's more like the fringe Pokemon, niche. D rank is probably don't use this, but there is a way to justify it in between the lines a little bit, etc. You get the point. So yeah, let's go ahead and get through it. Ferrothorn has been phenomenal lately. It does really well against a couple of metagame, forces that have been pretty hard to deal with lately, such as Arctozolt, Tapu Koko, those type Pokemon. Also is a great spike setter. Spikes are super important towards making progress, and it's hard to get a defog off against it when it's got Leech Seed, Body Press, all those things. You see things like Knockoff to deter certain switch-ins. You see Power Whip and Gyro Ball or Iron Head as stabs. You can even see status moves like Thunder Wave. Overall, Ferrothorn's viability is at its high point for the generation at this point in time, and I definitely see it continuing to be that way. Great utility option, and just really fond of it. It's hard to use on teams because it doesn't really counter many things besides maybe Tapu Koko and Tapu Fini, but still, it's really good, and when you can make use of it in the right bulky offense or balance team, you will definitely see the dividends that it pays off. All things considered, I'm very high in Ferrothorn right now, and I'm not surprised it was A+. It was a pretty decisive vote. Next up, we got Kyurem. Kyurem is the big, bad, controversial Pokemon as of late. The combination of Ice Beam and Freeze Drive, be it with Choice Specs, Nevermouth Ice, or whatever it may be, is very devastating. Earth Power is also a phenomenal coverage move, hitting things like Heatran, Jirachi, even other things like Aegislash, which you see here and there as well. Also fire types like Volcanion, I guess, although Freeze Drive hits that, it's not really a fire type. Maybe fire type's Heatran. I don't know what I'm saying. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, there are also things like Dragonite sets, which you can use with Magnezone. I guess Scarf Set to pick off Surprise, Dragapult, and Tapu Koko can do some work as well. Overall, Kyurem's a really strong Pokemon. A decent amount of versatility, but also just its standalone main niche, special attacker, is really devastating. Be it again Choice Specs, Nevermouth Ice, or even the occasional substitute plus Roost Set. Pressure is a great ability to have. Kyurem is just a hard Pokemon to navigate against. You really have to use something like Scizor or Blissey to handle the special sets. Otherwise, you're going to be pretty tough against it. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of Kyurem right now, and we'll have to see where it goes moving forward. Blissey is another Pokemon that actually rose up largely in response to things like Kyurem, Slowking Galar, Tapu Koko, Nidoking, Hydreigon, even Specs Dragapult. That's been really a metagame mover for a while now. Blissey does well against all these Pokemon, and it functions nicely as a teleport pivot, so it's pretty cool to see that functioning at a high level in the metagame come back to flourish. It's really good on balanced teams right now, in my opinion. It even can work on bulky teams as well, so we'll have to wait and see how that does. Slowbro is the next one. We've seen a lot of the Culber plus Body Press set to help check things like Weavile and Bisharp as well. Also, Culber Berry just lets switch into knockoffs a little bit easier in general, so that's going to be helpful for that. And of course, Future Sight plus Teleport is always impossible to check when you have the right team for it, so love that. I think Slowbro opens up bulky offense a ton, and even can find its way into balanced teams too. Finally, speaking of very good psychic types, we also have Victini, a Pokemon that's finally hit the A ranks this generation. I really love it as a kind of soft check to things like Tapu Lele, Kyurem, and Volcarona lacking Bug Buzz as well. But it also packs a punch with V-Create. It could run, special sets with Future Sight or Expanding Force and Terrain, Blue Flare. You know the drill. It's got good coverage. It has heavy duty boots to really negate the hazard weakness, and U-turn functions as a pivot. Overall, Victini is an underrated Pokemon. Does really well on bulky offensive teams. I'm quite fond of it as a pick in the metagame right now. Let's talk about some other Pokemon that also rose. I'm going to list them and then see if anything really stands out. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but Gastrodon from B2B+, Volcanion from B2B+, as well. Let's talk about Volcanion for a moment. Volcanion is really hard to check if you don't have a really specific Pokemon for it, like Gastrodon or Blissey. Steam Eruption plus Flamethrower is super devastating, and Sludge Wave, or Sludge Bomb rather, hits Tapu Fini as well. It's really cool. It can also run status to deter things like Gastrodon, or potentially other moves as well, Fire Spin or whatever it may be to trap things even, Rest for longevity, Defog's even viable as well. It's a pretty cool Pokemon. Definitely like seeing that, be it on rain teams or just bounce teams in general. I think Volcanion is a pretty cool niche Pokemon. Moltres and Zapdos rising from B- to B+. I really like that. Zapdos in particular has really been killing it lately. It is super hard switching to if you don't have someone like Zapdos on your team. Zapdos Cantonian, of course. Zapdos is great at abusing things like Landorus T due to the ability to be immune to Earthquake, switching to it pretty comfortably, and also just destroy everything once it gets the Defiant Boost from Intimidate. Love using Zapdos right now. Even a Stomping Tantrum, the Tapu Koko, which is pretty dope. And I guess that hits Age Slash as well. So yeah, all things considered, I'm very high on Zapdos in the metagame. I'm curious to see where that goes moving forward. Jirachi from C+ to B-, Seismitoad from C to C+, Conkeldurr from C- to C, Moltres from C- to C, Shedinja from C- to C, and then we got some unranked Pokemon re-ranked. Nihilego in particular went all the way from unranked to C+. Let's talk about that. So Nihilego is actually really awkward to check for things like Blissey that you'd think would be a nice special wall, because it has Pain Split, so it could just heal up damage, and eventually, Meteor Beam its way to victory. It also just has a nice unique stab combination. Some Steel types are going to be painful for it to deal with, but overall, it can pack a punch. It's nice against Fairy types in particular. It's got a really great speed tier, and it has a nice matchup against bulky teams due to that Pain Split dynamic, and Meteor Beam eventually just rising it to be very strong. So I'm very fond of Nihilego right now. Avalugg, unranked to C. It's just been a staple on stall teams. Unfortunately, they've been coming back a bit more and more lately. It's quite good on those. Rapid Spin, strong body press, really great match against ground types and whatnot. So yeah. And then also Darmanitan, just a late game cleaner on some teams, and occasionally you see it as heavy duty boots instead of Scarf, and it can kind of just pivot its way around things, breaking things down with Flare Blitz as well. So that's pretty cool. Let's talk about things that dropped in the metagame. We got the big drops from S- to A+, Weavile, from A+ to A, Garchomp, A+ to A, Urshifu Rapid, A to A- the Hail Duo of Arctozolt in Ninetales Lola, A- to B+, finally falling into the A ranks, Rillaboom, same for Dragonite, A- to B+, Hippowdon as well, and then finally Skarmory and Slowking. So let's talk about these one for one, and then we'll kind of summarize the other things. So when it comes to Weavile, it's still a great Pokemon. Resist to things like Freeze Dry and Shadow Ball are absolutely huge, coupled with the fact that it's immune to Psychic, and it has a great offensive presence with the Swords Dance set. Great dual stab, Ice Shard comes in handy, Knockoff is always useful, and Triple Axle is super duper strong. But when it comes to Weavile, it's just pretty hard to hard to justify at the moment on every single team that you previously saw it on, due to the fact that we're finding more durable ways to check Kyurem and Dragapult at the moment. Things like Blissey rising up arguably take its niche and set more of a tone for balanced teams and bulky offense, but at the same time, Weavile is still a great pick due to its strong offensive presence. It's clearly an A+ Pokemon, without a doubt a top 10 Pokemon metagame, but maybe not necessarily top 5 like it was once before, and that's why we're seeing a slight drop. We really aren't worried about it. Weavile is going to be here to stay. It's a very strong Pokemon, and there's no doubt about that, but it might just have a slightly less niche than it did maybe, let's say, a month or so ago, so that reflects this. I hope you guys understand that much. I know this has been asked about a lot, so yeah. Garchomp's the next one. Another more controversial drop in the eyes of some. Admittedly, Garchomp's been suffering from Landorus T being in every team. Fitting both of them is not always possible. The Swords Dance sets in particular have also been pretty easy to check. Things like Ice Shard to check the Revenge Killer, or potentially Misty Train, tank the +2 Earthquake if you're Tapu Fini, and do a lot of damage back, and also negate the damage of Scale Shot for switch-ins. Beyond that, there's also like a lot of grass types popping around right now. I know Skarmory just dropped, but I still think Skarmory is a pretty underrated Pokemon in metagame. Personally, I voted for it standing minus, so there's that. And then Intimidate Landorus T can also, thwart its plans early on. In the bulkier Stealth Rock sets, they don't do too well against things like Corviknight. Don't do too well against things like Tornado T that can knock it off, kind of come in and out, and eventually just wear it down. To the point that Tank Chomp definitely is not as common as it once was, again, especially in a metagame with Landorus T being so common. Non-ground type rockers are also just surging, things like Heatran. Even Clefable we're seeing more and more of. So yeah, Urshifu Rapid, another thing that dropped. It's been one of the better Pokemon in the metagame for a while, and it still is, but we're seeing a ton of water types that do well against it. Slowbro, Tapu Fini, Toxapex, all ones that are worth noting that do quite well against Urshifu Rapid. In my eyes, it's struggling to remain dominant force metagame. It's still very good. It pairs especially well with Future Sight in my eyes, or Hazard support, but with Weavile seeing a slight decline, it also just sees less reason to use it on bulky offensive teams. All in all, just a slight downward tick for Urshifu Rapid Strike right now. Hail teams were dominating the metagame, storming through, really, really strong, but they definitely have taken a hit recently. More people are preparing for them. Once you prepare for those type of niche play styles, they do start to decline in usage, and we're seeing that natural regression toward the mean. I expect them to probably plateau in B+ eventually, but yeah, for the meantime, Arctozolt and Ninetales Lola still very strong options, but very checkable at the same time. And by the way, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. Still getting over a cold, but we're feeling better. I think I'm, good enough to inherit it anyway. So yeah, Rillaboom, Pokemon that's been in the A ranks all generation. I believe peaking in A+ during one of the OLTs. Mostly plateauing in A and A-. Finally has fallen out of those to B+. There's just not much reason to use Rillaboom right now. It's very reliant on things like Magnezone for support, but it's not a staple on Magnezone teams. And really good on Hyper Offensive teams, but it's not a staple on those. So you already put it in some fringe context to begin with, and then it's not even like necessary in those contexts. And you just see the niche, the reason to use Rillaboom to be dropping. It's not a very good offensive presence right now. Plenty of things able to check it, even minimizing it, not making it the best revenge killer at the moment due to a lot of grass resistances and train changes and whatnot. That makes it hard to justify Rillaboom. Still good at knocking the right things off, U-turning out and providing support with grassy train, but that alone is not enough to justify it in the A ranks for the time being. Next up, we got Dragonite, another Pokemon that really falls in that same boat. It's reliant on support for those offensive sets. In the Defog, the utility sets, Speed, Heal, Bell, Defog, whatever coverage it is, they do check things like Urshifu Rapid, like the Ice Punch, Rillaboom, Kartana, etc., but those sets are not enough to warrant it being ranked highly, especially due to their general passivity. It's really hard to see people using it in more consistent fashion than we saw it in months ago. It's just not at that level anymore, and that's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's not really surprising, I guess. It always felt like Dragonite was more of a temporary force to be reckoned with. It definitely had metagame adaptations to it. We're definitely seeing more ice types right now, and we're seeing less reason, less incentive to use it. So Dragonite definitely took a bit of a hit right now. As for Powdon, it's a bit weird because it's still effective in the same niche it was prior, unlike the last couple Pokemon, but at the same time, that niche maybe is a bit more minimized. Metagame trends like Tapu Lele and Kyurem do really well against the Powdon Sands in general, which makes it harder for them to use. More likely to use things like Tyranitar, for instance. That coupled with the fact that Hippowdon doesn't match up very well with Defoggers, much like Garchomp falling in that same trap there, makes it harder and harder to justify, so we're going to see a slight drop, despite, again, still doing well against those electric types, still doing well against things like Heatran, and still being able to set up Stealth Rock and Sand. So yeah, I mean, it's tough, but that's life sometimes. Finally, Skarmory and Slowking fell. Two Pokemon, one very good in the physical defense side, one very good in the special defensive side. Skarmory is still very good, but we're seeing more things like Ferrothorn spiking, and also things like Defog Tornadus too, with Heat Wave really negating it, Magnezone being very common, so it's tough. And as for Slowking, again, we're seeing more Slowbro, so just kind of competition outmaneuvering these Pokemon. It does still do well against Tapu Lele, AV Slowking Galar, and non-toxic Heatran, but that's really only a small handful of Pokemon, whereas the rest of the metagame, a lot of special attackers like Kyurem, Dragapult, Tapu Koko, Magnezone, etc., can hit it super effectively, and that's very tough for Slowking, considering that's its main niche. Other things dropping, I'll try and make note of a few again. Tangrowth from B+ to B, Double Bula from B+ to B, Drake is up from B to B-. It's a big one, a lot of people are surprised, but especially defensive Landorus T being so common, and it just being very prediction line, it's hard to justify Drake still right now. It's just not as strong as it once was. Como O, and Ryu Nicholas, and Swampert from B to B-. Azumarill from C+ to C, actually might be C-. I could have mistyped that, I'm not sure. Glastrier from C+ to C, the Lotties both from C+ to C. The weakness policy plus third power sets just aren't as consistent right now. People know them. They're kind of more one-trick ponies. And other sets, like Healing Wish from Latias or offensive sets from Latios just are not as consistent, not as good right now. It's tough to justify them. Hatterene from C to C-, Quagsire from C to C-, Shuckle from C to C-, and Alakazam, Uxie, and Weezing Galar from C- to unranked. So yeah, that about does it. If you have any questions, you have another 24 or so hours to drop them in the thread. I'm answering every question I can, and renomination phase for new potential rises and drops in the thread will be open in a couple days as well, so stay tuned for that, next cycle and whatnot. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord server, or follow me on Twitter if you guys want to see more. And I hope you all have a great day, good rest of your week, and I think this will go up on Sunday. So yeah, alright, bye guys.